You have once again entered the world of survival horror. Good luck. Last time, I spoke about Resident Evil's development history. If you haven't seen the prior video, I'd suggest you go and check it out before you watch this. I spoke about the trials and tribulations of the dev team and the eventual success of the game, but I didn't really go in depth as to why it did so well. That's what I'll be doing for these next two installments of the series. In this video, I'll be covering solely the story of Resident Evil, and in the next, I'll do an in-depth discussion of the gameplay. Let's not waste any more time, and we'll get right into the fun. Side note, a majority of this footage is not mine. For some godforsaken reason, most of my gameplay footage was corrupted, and I don't feel like re-recording both playthroughs again. The Special Tactics and Rescue Service, also known as STARS, is sent to a mansion in the outskirts of Raccoon City to follow up on reports of murders. Specifically, these reports say that the victims were found with parts of them eaten. Bravo team of the STARS division is sent in to investigate, yet mysteriously they go missing. So, Team Alpha is sent in to clean up their mess. Although, for a special ops team that has tactics in its name, one can't help to question the tactical decision-making that goes into sending a single team in, having that team disappear, and then sending a team that is nearly identical in strategical value as the supposed solution. The only remaining member of Team Bravo found alive is Rebecca Chambers, the youngest of the group, who, at 18, has no combat training whatsoever and is equipped with only basic medical knowledge and a bachelor's degree in science. After a bit of looking, the team finds some corpses, completely dismembered and ripped to shreds. This is when zombified dogs, who are codenamed Cerberus, jump from the tall grass and rib Joseph a new one. After he's been killed, Brad, their yellow-bellied helicopter pilot, flies off. He is the true antagonist of this game. Screw you, Brad. The remaining STARS members haul ass out of there, blindly firing at the dogs until they reach the Spencer mansion, where they thought it was safe. This is where we get into the two differing timelines. You can either play as Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield, which is actually a very clever usage of difficulty settings. Jill's playthrough is decently easier than Chris's, with her being able to skip certain boss fights and get certain items easier. And, being the master of unlocking, she has a lockpick that allows her to make it through doors before Chris ever could in his playthrough. Although, Chris seems to have a better proficiency with most weapons. There are also various differences between their storylines, but Jill's storyline seems to adhere to the current canon more than Chris's does. So I'll go over hers first and more in depth. However, Chris's main ending adheres more to the canon, so I will swap back and forth just a little bit. If I do a timeline in the future, I'll cover what is and isn't canon, because some aspects from each playthrough are part of the continuity. Jill, Barry, and Wesker make it into the mansion safely. Chris and Rebecca have mysteriously disappeared. A gunshot is heard from the dining room, prompting Barry and Jill to investigate. They find a pool of what seems to be blood.
Blood. Hope this is not Chris's blood.
Playing as Jill, we walk out into a hallway next to the dining room, and we encounter a badly rendered zombie nomming down on Kenny. We run our way back into the dining room screaming, and Barry unleashes his ultimate Zaddy energy, blowing the zombie's brains out. Time to go back into the main hall, but it seems as if Wesker has abandoned the crew. Probably went to a gas station to get cigarettes, where he chats it up with a friendly trucker who is grabbing a quick bite. Time to go search for the King of Sunglasses. Some of the doors that we need to go through are locked, but that won't stop the Master of Unlocking. After realizing that Wesker has ditched us, we split off from Barry to do some more exploring. In our zombie-killing adventures, we find a journal from some sort of animal keeper. This account describes the upkeep of a large gorilla-like monster that completely lacks skin. Eventually, the keeper describes getting some sort of itchy swelling, implying he has been infected with the zombie virus. If I'm not mistaken, the journal can be found in Chris's playthrough as well. Jill seems to be kinda hungry, so we make our way back downstairs through one of the hallways. We don't find any food, but we do find a shotgun. This can't just be a normal house though, so when you attempt to go back the way you came, you encounter a murder room. The ceiling is coming down, Jill's freaking out, it ain't a good situation. That is, until Big Papa Barry comes to break down the door and saves you from becoming a
Jill sandwich.
Sounds pretty delicious. Jill is grateful to Barry because, he saved her life, but last time I checked, Barry had some investigating to do in a different room. So why is he here? Barry gives quite the suspicious response and runs off. Through our time stealing stuff, murdering stuff, and being the master of unlocking, we eventually find another journal from a dead scientist, detailing the outbreak of the virus. Well, I guess that explains the rotting cannibals and mutated puppies. Who would have thought? In my playthrough, I made my way into the safe room surrounded by 3 zombies and I got the chemicals. These chemicals are really handy for killing the mutated plant that's blocking my path. Gotta break up the Roundup weed killer. This allows Jill to acquire the mansion key because there are some doors that even the master of unlocking can't get through. One of the rooms that Jill can eventually find contains Forrest's corpse after he's been pecked to death by a bunch of crows. We pick up the bazooka before we look at his corpse because that way we'll have more time to run away after picking it up. Otherwise, we'll become bird food as well. By the way, Forrest died in the lamest way possible. You can get away from these crows simply by walking over to the door. Not to mention, Forrest had a goddamn bazooka. Remember, these are all ex-military vets who are part of an elite private military company, and Bozo Forrest Speyer decided to go spark up a smoke on the balcony, and he got Mario turdy stomped by some crows. After finding a room where you can harness your inner Asian child and do some piano playing, you open up a door that lets you pick up a special emblem. And then you immediately chuck it in your storage chest because you don't need it right now. Something that you do need right now is the serum, because your homeboy Richard has been bitten by a giant snake. We return with the serum and we save Richard in the nick of time. I'm just kidding, he dies. Not before he gives us a cool radio though. Time to get our revenge. Jill hunts down the snake and gives it the good old bazooka one too. But then the snake wusses out and slithers off. Now we find the moon crest. The star crest is found in a puzzle room with the murder of murder crows, and the sun crest is found in the puzzle room that actually turns out to be a trap, because if you don't put the statues in the right place before you press the button, you die. You can put a special jewel in the eye of the tiger that gives you the wind crest. With your powers combined, I am gonna put these crests in the door and unlock it. After getting through the door, we get a radio call from Brad. He's got some nerve showing up now. He is either deaf, or our radio is just a piece of garbage, because he can't hear a single thing we say. There's a bridge that needs deployment, so it's time to put a square peg in a square hole and crank that Soulja Boy.
Soulja Boy, tough.
We make our way over the bridge, climb some stairs, put down some dogs, and oh yeah, fight giant spiders. After putting a special code into a special door, we get a special key. We also get attacked by genetically modified bees, which Wesker seems to have spent most of his time shooting at.
Wesker!
We find a report about Plant 42, a super strong plant, and not the type that you moved to Colorado for. And then we descend even lower into the depths of the bunker. Here is the best part. There are sharks. And I don't mean that metaphorically, or rhetorically, or poetically, or theoretically, or in any other fancy way. There are sharks. Straight up. Wading through the flooded basement, we find some doors, so naturally it's time to go through them. One of these rooms allows you to drain the flooded water and kill the sharks. Oh, look at that. There's a bookshelf. It's got one specially placed different color book. I wonder what could be in it. So we read this book and we get an in-depth description of the tyrant virus, a genetically engineered virus that uses the cells of plants that have been infected. Kinda suspicious if you ask me. It's also kinda suspicious that we haven't found Wesker yet, considering he just, kinda up and left us. Maybe he's still after that sweet infected honey. We open up a super secret passageway, move some boxes around, and then we stumble upon Plant 42. It looks like a boss fight at first, but then Jill finds out she's way too underpowered for this sort of thing. That's okay though, because Papa Barry shows up again out of nowhere and deep fries the mutant plant with a flamethrower. Where did he get it from? I have no idea. Barry and Jill split up again for what reason I don't know. Then we encounter our absentee father, Wesker. We ask him why he never came back with the milk, and he tells us that he was trapped by some monster boyos. Although, this answer is pretty suspicious, especially since he fails to mention anything about his time with the bees. I've got my eye on you, Wesker. Mr. Sunglasses tells Jill that they need to devise a plan and get the heck out of there. But for some godforsaken reason, Wesker runs off again. Brad calls us on the radio and says that Jill needs to give him some sort of signal since, he can't hear us. Randomly, as we're frolicking through the hallways, the game cuts to first-person view. But it's not from our perspective, it's from the view of some reptile monster running straight towards Jill. These things are called hunters, and they're going to completely destroy you, and then they're going to take 80% of your ammo for the rest of the game. So, have fun. Looking through a book, we find a cool little medallion. It's nice and shiny, so we steal it. Here's where it gets really good. We find a pamphlet of orders, and we read Umbrella's master plan. The first step is to lure the STARS team into the mansion and obtain data of the fighting that ensues when they're attacked by monsters. The second step is to obtain 2 embryos from each bioweapon, except for Tyrant. Step 3 is to completely destroy the lab and frame it all as an accident. So, as you can see, this was a setup. More exploring ensues. You see a pattern here? And we're attacked by the snake again. You cowardly weasel, or, snake, I'm gonna whoop your ass this time, I swear to God. After introducing Mr. Snake to the business end of your shotgun, it's time to talk to Barry, who, for some reason, doesn't notice the giant dissolving snake right next to him. He offers to send you down the big hole in the room with a piece of rope, but, like a klutz, he drops the rope, leaving you down there. The first time I played through Jill's storyline, I thought Barry wasn't ever gonna come back, so I just explored the hole further. But if you sit there and wait, like a good little girl, Papa Barry will actually come back with the rope, who could have thought? I never should have doubted you, my sweet prince. Blah blah blah, we find a helicopter pad. Oh look, it's Barry again. What are you doing here, you silly goose?
Oh, Jill. What good timing. A moment ago I heard someone's voice coming from this hole. Let's go together since it's dark and we can't see very well.
Let's go investigate the voice then. I hope you're not having one of your schizo episodes again, Barry. Barry and Jill find Enrico, wounded at the end of the tunnel. He tells us that we're all gonna die because somebody has betrayed us. That's right, we have a snitch amongst our ranks. A mole, a turncoat, a defector, a Judas. Enrico then gets shot by, someone. I wonder who it could be. We crank that soldier boy again, then we get chased by a boulder. How fun. You find another chunky book, and we steal the medal from that too. I think Jill might need some help for that kleptomania she's experiencing. Luckily, those medals Jill took are actually useful for something. We find a fountain, stick the medals in the metal-shaped holes, and bada bing bada boom, secret tunnel. In the tunnel, Jill encounters a note written to Ada. I wonder who that could be. The note explains how to get through the security and how to get the hell out of there. Oh wow, look at that. A special blue light. I wonder what would happen if we flick it on. Look what we have here. These words on the painting. The words help us to decipher the code given to Ada in the letter so that we can escape. Jill finds a computer and uses the information we got from the puzzle to open it, like a super cool hacker or something. Side note, I think this first person section where you're looking at the computer is super cool, and I'm sad that they got rid of it in the remake. Finding another special note, we see that it's all a big cover up by Umbrella. Even though, I'm pretty sure we've already been told this quite a few times, but whatever. Being all sneaky-like through the lab, we find a projector with several images loaded into it. The last image of the slideshow is, it's Mr. Sunglasses Man Albert Wesker. I should have known. Never trust a man who dyes his hair mustard yellow or wears Gucci shades indoors. Walking on and exploring the chamber some more, Jill encounters Chris, but he's trapped in a cell, which he probably could have punched his way out of. He seems to be in quite the predicament. Barry and Jill meet up in the process of getting Chris out of the cell, and they have the most awkward interaction of the entire game.
Jill, you're here too.
Yes, you're here too?
Look, I lost my way.
Let's get going.
Then they run into Wesker's lame ass. Now that all the boys are back together, Barry pulls a gun on Jill? What? Why has Papa Barry done this, you might be asking? Well, Wesker has threatened to kill Barry's family if he doesn't do exactly as he says. And then, for some reason, Barry just walks off? Okay? Albert explains his whole master plan to Jill. Yada yada yada, yep, umbrella, yeah, embryos, whatever. We saw it all in the note earlier, you don't gotta explain it all again, Wesker. It turns out that Wesker is a double-crosser. He plans on taking the embryos for Umbrella's bioweapons and giving it to a rival corporation. So both we and Umbrella get the short end of the stick. Except for the fact that Barry literally materializes out of thin air and pistol whips Wesker. Also, for some reason, Jill thinks the entirety of the facility is a house. Yes, she has the intelligence of a 5-year-old, and still somehow became a special military operative. She definitely had to, help out a few guys to get in. This is where we get into the most important difference between the two campaigns. Jill's ending completely deviates from the established canon. Chris's main ending adheres more to the canon of the franchise here, so that's what I'll be talking about. In Chris's timeline, Wesker reveals his whole plan to us, and then shows us his creation, Tyrant. Now, this isn't exactly clear in the original game, but Wesker injects himself with a variation of the T-virus known as the prototype virus. At this point, Wesker gets completely dunked on by Chris.
This is the ultimate life form. Tyrant. Chris? Stop it.
Wesker, you're pitiful.
Oh, come on, Chris, don't laugh at him. He's trying his best. Now, Chris isn't laughing because he hates Wesker. He's laughing because he knows that he is the ultimate life form. Wesker sounds like the biggest dork on the entire planet in this clip. Chris, why are you laughing at me? Stop! Suddenly, Sunglasses gets turned into a kebab by the tyrant. He falls to the floor, seemingly dead. Whoever you play as, Jill or Chris, fights the tyrant a bit, goes to the roof, and then fights him again. And once you do enough damage, you get a rocket launcher to finish him off. My boy got completely blown to bits in the goofiest, most entertaining way possible, using a common trope at the time from cheesy action movies, which ended up being adopted for many fighting games, where we get a billion camera angles of the dramatic finish. I would not have it any other way. And with that concludes the story of Resident Evil. There are a few different endings you can achieve for both Jill and Chris's playthrough. If you don't abandon Barry and you save Chris as Jill, you get the good ending where everybody makes it out alive. If you save everybody as Chris, you get the good ending. If you fail these things, you get the not so good ending where Chris and Jill are the only ones that make it out of the mansion alive. A real bummer if you ask me. But you all must be asking, what the heck is an umbrella? Is Wesker still alive? What does Barry refer to when he says, this? Don't you worry, because I'm here to drop some of the lore upon you. I won't be explaining the entire lore of the series just yet. I'll just explain what is relevant for the first game and what you need to know. If you guys want me to, I can do an entire series timeline breakdown. In the late 60s and early 70s, eugenics became a hot-button topic, being debated throughout the Western world, especially in scientific communities. I know, one hell of a sentence to start with. Oswell E. Spencer, Edward Ashford, and James Marcus were the founding members of Umbrella. all of them being greatly influential virologists at the time. These three were deep into the whole eugenics movement going on during that period. Marcus, being the kooky bastard that he was, had a theory that an African plant, Stairway of the Sun, gave you superpowers when you ingested it and you were given its infection. He took these flowers and tried to grow them in the US, but to no avail. The virus wouldn't reproduce in these American-grown flowers. This project he was working on sucked up a bunch of money, and while the founding members had some rich friends, it wasn't enough to keep funding their work. So they formed the company Umbrella Pharmaceuticals. This is where it gets super interesting, so some very important things came out of this. This allowed the three founding members to set up an African base so that they could transport these flowers to the US. And also, they got a bunch of money out of it. Here's the most important part though. Ashford, Marcus, and Spencer all devised a project to develop the previously mentioned virus into a bioweapon to be sold to the US military. Toward the end of the 70s, the whole T-virus program blew up. This was due to the research of Dr. William Birkin, an individual who becomes extremely important in the second game. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss when I upload. That way, you'll get to learn about all of Dr. Birkin's escapades in Resident Evil 2. Here's an interesting note. The umbrella symbol chosen for the corporation was actually chosen by Oswald Spencer after his time in a Romanian village. The same village where the events of Resident Evil 8 take place, and as a matter of fact, Spencer studied under Mother Miranda during the creation of Umbrella Pharmaceuticals. You might recognize her as the antagonist for Resident Evil 8. Just a little fun fact. This is where we get into Wesker's involvement. Nobody actually knows his real name. He was given the name Albert Wesker by Oswald Spencer. He was chosen for his genetics that lead to extreme intelligence. He was taken from his parents at a young age due to this and was part of a large movement put together by the Spencer Foundation. He was one of the many quote-unquote Wesker children that were raised to have Spencer's eugenics values, believing that the human race needed to evolve and that they were at the stopping point in their development. Wesker went on to become a virologist, only being rivaled in intelligence and skill by William Birkin. Immediately after he finished his education, he was offered a job in the Arclay Labs, being the one that were seen in the outskirts of Raccoon City. This is where we roughly get into the plot of Resident Evil 1. Now, Wesker seems to have died in the lab after being stabbed by Tyrant, but this is actually untrue. It's left completely ambiguous by the first game, but to explain further, Wesker essentially won the genetic lottery. All of the children snatched up in the Spencer Foundation were prodigies in some regard due to their advantageous genes, and they were all extremely genetically similar. The Wesker children each were given some sort of prototype strain of the virus, and they had the hope that they were lucky enough to receive its benefits instead of straight up dying. Spoiler alert, most of them weren't that lucky. Wesker was sustained by the sample of the T-virus that he acquired from Birkin, and it gave him superhuman powers as a result. Super speed, unknowable strength, enhanced perception. So, let's lay it all out plain and simple. Wesker was already born with some sort of super genius crazy genetics that would make anybody jealous. Then he also becomes part of the 0.01% that can somehow survive the virus. He's ascended to the ultimate form of white privilege.
Complete global saturation.
Now, the STARS team was formed by Umbrella essentially as a private military service. This was since the Raccoon City police force didn't have a SWAT team. They are essentially a scaled down version of Blackwater. You see, Umbrella had a chokehold on Raccoon City, having control over all its politicians, police officials, essentially anybody with power. That's why Umbrella is able to get away with hiring private military contractors and doing these insane experiments under the nose of everybody. If somebody got in their way or tried to blow the whistle, Umbrella could essentially just make them disappear. Ultimately, this leads to the outbreak in Resident Evil 2, which I'll talk about a little later into the series. By the way, when Barry says,
I have this,
he's referring to a gun known as the Samurai Edge, created by Joseph Kendo, the brother of Barry's friend, Robert Kendo. And that's just about it when it comes to the story of Resident Evil 1. Is it completely batshit insane? Yes. Is it particularly well written? Not all the time. But there's so much interesting lore that's collected over the years, and I can't wait to share more of it with you guys in future installments. If you want to see more content from me, subscribe and click the notification bell to stay updated when I release a video. And make sure to comment and tell me what you think about the video series so far. I look forward to hearing from you guys. A friend of mine, Grimside, helped me write the script, so check him out. His links will be in the description. Until I see you again, stay alive, stay safe, and stay human.